Welcome back to Cooking with Bob. Today we're going to make homemade ravioli. But we need to start with fresh pasta dough. I measured out 500 grams of all-purpose flour. You'll need 5 eggs, and if you can remember, bring them to room temperature. You're going to dump the eggs in with the flour. And if you have a KitchenAid mixer, you're going to use the beater bar and you're going to beat that up for a while. Now, I use all-purpose flour. There's a lot of very high-priced flours out there, semolina, durum. It doesn't matter. It's like when you go to the gas pump. You could use regular or you could use premium. It's just a matter of what you want to pay for, but all-purpose works well for me. You want to let this mix up until it starts to form large crumbs, and eventually it'll all come together as a dough. Sometimes you can add a little olive oil or water to get that consistency, but I did not need that today. Now you're going to have to knead the dough. So put the dough hook in your KitchenAid mixer. And this is going to work pretty hard. So use a low motor speed. You can't see, but I'm holding the motor head down so it doesn't jiggle around. You can always hand knead this, but that will take you about 8 to 10 minutes and probably kill your hands while you're at it. At this point, the dough should not be sticky. You want to get some saran wrap and wrap that dough ball up nice and tight and just leave it alone for 30 to 45 minutes. While you're waiting, let's make some meat filling. Hello, meat. This is prosciutto. The recipe I was following called for pancetta, which I could not find, so I got 6 thin slices of prosciutto, which you want to chop up as fine as you can. You're going to fry that up in a frying pan. Now, there's a lot of fat in this meat, so as that fat renders, that's going to become your grease to cook the rest of the meat in. The recipe called for a pound of pork or veal. This is actually 1.25 pounds. I'm going to put about 6 cloves worth of minced garlic. Now I'm adding about a teaspoon of oregano. Here I'm adding about a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. I've also added some parsley. I just use dried parsley, which rehydrates very well with all the meat juices. Here I'm going to add 4 egg yolks, just the yolks. And you're going to mix that in, and then you're going to take the heat off and you're going to let everything cool. I'm not sure what the eggs do, but the recipe called for egg yolk, so I added the egg yolk. Once that cools down, I'm going to transfer it to a bowl and place the bowl in the refrigerator because we're coming up to the real heavy-duty step. It's time to roll out our pasta and start cutting ravioli. Clamped to the counter is the Mercato Atlas 150 pasta maker, the most popular pasta maker in the world, made in Italy. So I have my rested pasta dough and I'm going to cut it into 4 sections. I'm going to work with 1 section at a time, and I'm going to keep the unused sections wrapped so they don't dry out. Now this can get a little messy. You're going to use a lot of flour. Flour is your friend, especially on a humid August day like it is today. The dough can get a little sticky. Alright, so you're going to run it through the pasta machine at the largest setting. Now, by large, I mean it's the furthest distance the 2 rollers are from each other. Happens to be number 1. So as the numbers go higher, the rollers come closer together and your sheet becomes thinner. Now this is an extra kneading process. You're going to take it through, you're going to fold it in half. Do this a few times and make sure you keep the dough well floured. Now, old-fashioned Italian grannies would do this with a rolling pin, but it's impossible to maintain a consistent thinness of the pasta sheet without using a machine like this. They'll last you forever. You clean them with a paintbrush because you never want to get any water into them. So you just keep taking it through. Notice the sheet's not getting any thinner, so it's not getting longer. Once we start dialing up the thinness, you'll notice that the pasta sheet will get longer. All right, so now I'm going to take it up to number 2, which is going to produce a thinner roll of pasta. So you'll see that the pasta strip starts to get a little longer. I'm dusting it with flour because you want to keep it well floured. You don't want it tearing. Now I'm up to number 3, so I'm going to run it through on number 3. They come with electric motors, but I find it's a lot easier to use the crank. You can kind of work at your own pace. Now I'm up to number 4. So the rollers are getting closer together, producing a thinner pasta sheet. And you could tell it's getting thinner because you'll see that it's getting longer. Now I'm going to go to number 5. This will be my last pass. Now when you see how thin this comes out, you'll be able to tell by how long this sheet will be. So it goes in as a 4, comes out as a 5. Look at all that. All right, so we're pulling it through, and now we have a finished sheet that we're going to cut our raviolis from. Now, there are several tools that you could use to cut your pasta sheets for ravioli. There's fancy hand presses, there's machines that roll it into forms, there's trays where you load the dough in a tray and then add your filling and then put a mold on top, run your rolling pin over the mold. I don't have any of those, so I'm improvising. I have a small juice cup, and I'm using the small juice cup to press out my circles. Why don't we pick up the pace a little bit? You kind of get the idea.
Porque tanto perderse, tanto buscarse, sin encontrarse, me encierran los muros de todas partes. Barcelona, te estás equivocando, no puedes seguir inventando que el mundo sea otra cosa y volar como mariposa.
My plan is to make 48 raviolis, which means I'm going to need 96 circles. Now I have 4 sheets. I got 22 circles this time, so I'm going to have to pick up a couple more along the way. Now things get really crazy with the ravioli stuffing. So I take my bowl out of the fridge. I got my filling nice and cool. I have about 102 circles, so I have a couple extra that I can deal with. I'm looking for a teaspoon to help me with the filling. And that's a bowl of water in the small bowl. So I take my little ravioli disc and I scoop about a teaspoon worth of filling and I try to hit the center. I don't want any on the edges. And then I go around and I wet the noodle and I'm just wetting the edge at the top. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to press it with my fingers, and then I'm going to use the tines of a fork to seal it. Now, this is very tedious. If I had a ravioli roller, I could do 12 in the time it's taken me to do one. But I never did this before, and I don't want to start buying equipment that I'm not going to use. So let me do a couple more. I put the disc down. I get a spoonful of filling. Get another ravioli circle. I carefully wet the edges. I cover the filling. I press the dough disc into the bottom one, and then using a fork, I go all the way around to try to crimp and seal the raviolis. Let's see if we can pick up the pace at this point.
Porque tanto perderse, tanto buscarse, sin encontrarse, me encierran los muros de todas partes. Barcelona, te estás equivocando, no puedes seguir inventando.
I now have 30 raviolis done. They're on tray number 1, and I am working on tray number 2. So I need at least 18 more at this point to come up with my 48.
Porque tanto perderse, tanto buscarse, sin encontrarse, me encierran los muros de todas partes. Barcelona, te estás equivocando, no puedes seguir inventando que el mundo sea otra cosa y volar como mariposa. Barcelona, hace un calor que me deja fría por dentro, con este vicio de vivir mintiendo. Qué bonito sería tu mar si supiera yo nadar. Barcelona, mi mente está llena de cara de gente extranjera, conocida, desconocida. He vuelto a ser transparente, no existo más. Barcelona, siendo esposa de tus ruidos, tu laberinto extrovertido. No he encontrado la razón, porque me duele el corazón, porque es tan fuerte que solo podré vivirte en la distancia y escribirte una canción. Te quiero, Barcelona.
Ella tiene poder. Ella tiene poder. Ella tiene poder. Ella tiene poder. Ella tiene poder.
Barcelona es poderosa.
Ella tiene poder.
Barcelona es poderosa.
And by this point, I realize that I will be investing in some type of ravioli roller or ravioli plate, because this is insanely impossible to do this many by hand. But wait, there's more. While the ravioli's dry, it's time to make our meat sauce. I'm going to keep this really simple. I just use a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. I braise that first in some olive oil, and then I add 4 cans of water. Some people might only want to use 3. For flavoring, I stir in the 1/4 pound of leftover stuffing meat. I let that simmer for about an hour while the ravioli dries. Bring a pot of salted water to boil and toss in the raviolis, and they're going to rise to the top in about 4 or 5 minutes, and then you drain them, and then you cover them with some butter. Not bad for the first time. Now, Aaron is a very picky eater. Let's see what he thinks. Aaron, what do you think of Dad's new raviolis?
I like them.
Good. Should I make them again?
Yeah.